Here are some tips and advices about how to work with images on our website. Now, before you get down to work, what you want to do is select your image, and there are a number of considerations you should bear in mind. Uh, One of these is copyright. If you're using an image from somewhere else, then you got to be sure that it's not under copyright. Sometimes you can be safe to use extremely old photos or engravings. They're likely that it's likely that the copyright is run out on them, but you still have to investigate carefully and obtain the permissions that you need if you go ahead and use the photo. Now, suppose it's a photo that you took yourself here in the meeting house. Well, you still have to be concerned about the people in the photo. You'll need to get permissions from those folks, and we'll have some release forms that you can use. This is particularly important with kids. People are very sensitive about photos of their kids going up on the internet, so we want to be careful to get our permissions. The next thing you want to look at is the composition of the photo. Many photos that we looked at on our cell phone or wherever, when we first look at it, we don't see the faults in it. For example, it might be a photo of grandma, which just looks just great. That's grandma. But we don't really notice that the baby's finger is sticking in grandma's nose, or there is uncle is holding a coffee cup out in front. So sometimes you can take the photo and you can edit those things out. There are tricks you can use like blurring out the background. If you look around the internet, you can find some good instruction on that. You'll need a photo editing or an image editing tool. Photoshop is great if you have it, if you can afford it. I don't and can't, so I use a free tool called Paintnet. Now, you can get Paint.net from the Windows Store, the Microsoft Store to be more precise. Here's the Microsoft Store. It's on every PC. If you use a Macintosh, I'm sure there are equivalent things you can get, but this is what I like for the PC. And I'll just search for Paint.net. And there it is. And I obviously already have a copy installed, but if you don't, it will give you a button here to download and install it. And it's very simple and very safe. So I'm going to bring up a photo in Paint.net. This is Peter Blood and Annie Patterson. Kind of a nice photo. This is a little grainy. You'd probably want to get something of better quality, but we're just going to use this for demonstration purposes right now. If I look in at the size of it, I see it's 1500 pixels wide, which is pretty big. We can put it in and set a width on the website, and it'll resize, but I've found that for best results, you want to resize the photo before you put it up. Let me show you how this works here. So we'll go to the website, and here's a page. Could use an image. Probably not that one, but we'll use it just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to edit the page. And there are two ways that you can get an image on the page. One is to insert it in a content block. The other is to use an image block, which I will show you in more detail shortly. But with the content block, you edit the block. And in this nice little editor, you can click the image icon up here. And then you choose it by clicking Browse Server. Now, one of the really great things about Concrete 5 is we don't have to use FTP or any other sort of external means of getting the image up there. We have this nice file manager. So you just click Upload Files, and I'm going to find my file somewhere here. Where did I put that? Pictures. Oh, here somewhere. Okay, there they are. So I just drag from, let me show you what I'm doing here. So I have the file manager. There's my picture. And I just drag it and drop it. This edit property and sets lets you add some additional information about the photo, which is often useful, but we'll get to that at a future time. Right now we're just going to use it as is. Okay, now I'm just going to dump it in and see what it does. So as you can see, it takes up the whole page, and then all the text follows. So we really want to make this smaller, and here we'll click on it. Go to Image Properties, which gets you that original screen. Now, here's what we'll do. We can bring up this image in Paintnet, and we can resize it. So let's calculate how big it should be. It should take up about half of that page, which is probably about 500 pixels wide. We'll change the width to 500. Okay. And I like to save extra copies. Sometimes I name the file with the number of pixels wide it is, and then I can keep track of that. Okay. Then back in the program here, let me find that. Here's our original picture, and oops, hold on. What we want to do is to replace the, may not let me do it here. Well, we'll just upload a fresh version. This time, just to show you a different way to do it, I'm going to click to upload it. Half of the problem with computer work is finding things. They're there. Okay, so I'm going to upload my smaller version. So like that. Well, that would be okay, but it's in there in a funny way. It bounces down this line and it cuts in half, and it's just kind of a mess. See if we can move it around and see what. That looks a little better, but you know, you got your image and then you got the text down below it. That's not quite what I want. So let's go to image properties again and set it to align to the right. Ah, there we go. That's a lot better. So now my text wraps around the photo, which is pretty nice. But we can get into some problems with this. Let's see if we do. So if we resize the browser, well, it's still wrapping around nicely. But we can get to a certain part where, whoops, the text looks really funny on the left-hand side there. That's a real problem. So if their browser is like this, it's just going to look completely bizarre. And if we get really small, it's resizing it. I guess that's a smart trick of Paintnet. So, you know, you can experiment and see how these things work. Sometimes the photo, just like this, will work out fine, but sometimes you get that squeeze effect. To avoid the squeeze effect, one thing you can do is use an image block, and I'll show you that in a minute. But before I go to that, I want to show you about the CSS classes that you can use with images. Our website uses the Bootstrap set of CSS classes, and they have a number of things that can be used with photos. So here's how you would, if you want, I'll give you this link to here's some examples from another website about how you can use these Bootstrap classes. You can give it rounded corners, you can make it a little kind of cameo circle, or the thumbnail class puts this nice little slightly rounded corner and a little border around it. Image responses makes it resize. You don't always need that because Concrete 5 takes care of a lot of the resizing for you. But let's try a couple of things out here. So if I want to apply the classes to the photo here, I'll go into edit mode, edit the block, click on photo, go to image properties, and then on the advanced page, there's a little field for style sheet classes, and I can put IG is a good thing to put in for Bootstrap purposes. IG will make it image thumbnail. We'll make it image circle just to show you a little more dramatic effect here. And there's what that looks like. We can, what I use more often is image thumbnail. Type right. And image responsive is helps it resize. You may not need that, but it doesn't hurt. Okay, here's the image thumbnail with the little border around it. Another thing you might notice is sometimes there's not much space between the text and the photo. If you want more of that, back to the properties in advanced, you can add to the style, you can say add a little left margin. Now, I'm not explaining any of these CSS terms as we go along. I'll refer you to some other resources for that. So there you see we've got a little space, and it looks a little nicer if we resize. We're still having the squish problem. So just save this for now. Now, something's very useful if you're using Chrome. Other browsers have these features as well, but this is how to do it in Chrome. If you press F12, you get the developer tools, and Chrome has a little thing where you can emulate different kinds of devices. So this is how it would look on a iPhone 5 SE. That looks all right. It's a little, the sizing is a little odd, but you know, we can work with that. Let's see what it would look like on an iPad Pro. Yeah, it looks like that. That's okay. iPad. A little bit of a squish problem on the iPad, but that gives you a way to get at least, now your mileage may vary with different cell phones, but this is gives you a good fighting start to have a good idea of what it looks like. Okay, so what do we do about the squish problem? One way to deal with that is to use an image block instead of inserting the image into the text. So I'm just going to edit the block and delete the photo. I'm going to save the block. Now, when you use an image block and you want to be side by side with some content, you need to you may need to insert a layout. Let's see if I can find. Let me just save this for now. Okay. Go back into edit mode. What we're looking for now is this little tab here. When we hover over part of the page, we get this little thing, and sometimes you have to move your mouse quick to catch it before it goes away. And we click on that and say Add Layout. This lets us add a section to the page that may have multiple columns. So we're gonna make 2 columns. We'll size it like that. Okay. And then click Add Layout. And now you can see column 1, column 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag our content block down here into the column 1 area. And then in the column 2 area, we're going to add an image block. Okay, and when you add an image block, you get this little dialog. Let you choose an image with the image button. Let's see. Okay, and then you can add an additional image to make it look different if your mouse hovers over it. You can link to something else, either on the site or an external link. You can constrain the image size to it, like if it's really big, you can constrain it to a certain width or something like that. But I like to let it resize by itself and let the actual width of the column determine the width of the photo. So we'll just add that. And there they are. Okay, let me. Now, as we resize the browser, okay, the text is getting smaller, but when it gets to a certain point, see how nicely the image is resizing to fit the width of the browser. And when you get to a certain point, instead of squashing up the text to the side, it just pops it down to the end. Or if you put it on the left, it would pop it up to the top. So that's pretty useful. The only thing is that there's empty space underneath the image. Now, in certain page layouts, this is not a problem at all. It's actually how you want the thing to look. But sometimes it can just look funny. One workaround for that, just to make things look nicer, is you can add some content below the picture. All right. See a bunch of text, or you might have a oops, what is that? I must have accidentally, yeah, I hit something, but it's okay. I'm just trying to put in some fake text. Okay, so here we have additional content below the photo, and it will also move around depending on the width. So you'll find that there's sometimes that an image block just fits the bill better than embedding it right in the content, and sometimes it doesn't. Now, how would we apply those classes to this image block? It's a little trickier than with the content block, but not too hard. We click on the photo, on the image block actually, and we choose Design and Custom Template. And then we get this little toolbar up here. And then there's a little gear icon, gives you advanced settings, and here's where you can put your classes, like image thumbnail. And one little odd trick here is you've got to press the tab key or click on something else, or otherwise this setting here just doesn't seem to take. But, you know, a little quirk to work with. And then you just click Save. And that didn't work. No. See what went wrong there. Ah, I misspelled it. spelling is important. Humbnail. And we'll just publish our changes now. Now, why we have a picture of Peter and Annie on this page, I don't know, but it'll do for demonstration purposes. Well, that really barely scratches the surface of what you can do with images. You can learn a lot about CSS and about image manipulation. Just Google around on the web, particularly look for Paint.net and tricks with that, and you'll find it really quite easy. If you have any questions or need any kind of help at all, contact web support. Go to Help, Support, and use this form to send us a message.